Good evening, everyone. I am Mayor Donald T. Lopez, Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque, and I want to wish everybody a Happy New Year. It is 7 p.m., January the 11th, 2023. This meeting is streamed on the Village website. The public can also participate via Zoom. Instructions and overall public participation guidance for commenting is listed on the website and on page 5 of the meeting packet. The Village of Los Ranchos is providing the ability for the public to participate in hybrid meetings. As with any application, digital service, or software, the opportunity for failure can occur. Therefore, the Village is not responsible for the inability to connect to the meeting either by Zoom meeting link or viewing via live stream. The meeting video and audio is recorded and will be available online after the meeting on the Village website. At this time, I'm going to call the roll. Mayor Pro Tem and Trustee Sandra Pacheco is excused for tonight. Trustee Benavides. Here. Trustee Lewis. Supposed to be on Zoom. Kiko, can you connect Trustee Lewis?
Yes, we're unmuting him now and enabling his camera here.
Okay.
Trustee Lewis, can you unmute and then I'm not sure if you're coming in on camera or not as well.
I'm not on camera, but I am present.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Radnovich. Here. At this time, I would like to ask everybody to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm now going to move to item 4, approval of the agenda. I need a motion to approve or amend the agenda.
Motion to motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you. I need a second.
I second.
I'm going to call for the question. Call for the roll call vote. Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 5, general public comment. Participants wishing to speak on topics that do not appear on the agenda will be given 3 minutes. No action can occur on these items. Danielle, please proceed by calling up individuals that signed up for general public comment.
Thank you, Mayor. Cindy Smith, if you would please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes. Ms. Maria?
Testing 1, 2, 3. Good evening, everyone. My name is Cindy Smith. I'm the Community School Coordinator at Los Ranchos Elementary School. And I'm just wanting to share some of the events that we've been holding over the last semester. We were successfully able to begin our Community School Council. Our parent-teacher organization has also been reinstituted. We hosted several family engagement events, including a family reading night where parents and students came in their pajamas, their comfortable clothes, and had some wonderful reading time together. With our partner, Sandia Lab, we had a math night with our partner, the National Dance Institute. Several students also performed that evening as well. We've hosted one parent nutrition class, and we're very excited about that. And as part of the Genius Hour at our school, we just recently started a family fun and nutrition class with students with our partners, the New Mexico State ICANN, and a new partner, Girl Scouts of the New Mexico Trails, and we're very excited about that partnership. In fact, we're hoping to begin Girl Scout troops here in the village for the very first time by the end of this coming summer, and I'll be bringing more information about that later on. And I was actually able to also convince Mr. Josh O'Halloran to be a part of our class, and he's coming on Tuesdays. This past Tuesday, I don't think we gave him too big of a run for his money. He hung on there with the kids. And they actually got a great lesson by Josh and Dominic on the different types of soils, how water goes through the soils. And then we actually did some planting in these large, clear, see-through tubes that the students will be watering and actually seeing. They got to pick the seeds that went in the tubes, and we'll be watching that growth as part of that as well. Next month, Principal Robinson and I will be here more formally, be on the agenda to talk about some other events that are happening, as well as our mid-year test results from iReady, and we'll be very excited to report some very good growth by our students. Thank you.
Ms. Smith, before you step away, please provide your address for the record.
My address is 7112 Pan American East, Freeway Northeast, Unit 175, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, 87109.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Okay, Ms. Loretta Chavez, please. Yeah, if you would, please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Loretta Chavez Smith, 536 Chavez Road, here in the village. Happy New Year to all of you guys. It's good to see your faces. I just have one question that I haven't been able to get an answer for. What is the MRCG's classification of Chavez Road?
Do you know the answer to that question, or either Maria or it is an arterial, but I don't know what the classification is.
I can grab that file, and I can give you the information before the end of the meeting tonight.
Oh, okay.
I just don't want to give you wrong information.
No, I understand. Okay, thank you. That's it. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Mr. Craig, Joe Craig, if you would please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor, Trustees. Happy New Year. We're back again. I have a number of concerns on this meeting. The one I want to address right now is about the Village Vision magazine, and I want to read off our website. The Village Vision is a local municipal magazine produced by the Village Los Ranchos. The Village Vision began in 2004, and that was started by one of our members, Laura Lee McDowell, as a newsletter for village residents and businesses, and continues to be written about the village, by villagers, and for villagers. Our current magazine does not seem to fulfill that. It's ads of out of village businesses. We were prohibited, as I understand, from putting an ad in there for whatever reason. We've got a great deal of concern. We have supported the village to the tune of close to $20 million in efforts. We have had ads in the Village Vision, and we continue to want to do that. Being prohibited by the administration and from doing that is going to cause a great deal of trouble. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. Ms. Linda McKee, if you would. You're going to abstain? Okay. Kiko, is there anybody online who signed up for general public comment? Would you please check?
There is nobody online right now with their hand raised.
Thank you, Kiko. And with that, Mayor and Trustees, that concludes public comment.
We're going to move to how do we want to handle this, Danielle?
Generally, we ask that you sign up by noon the day of the meeting or at the foyer before the meeting, but please.
Yeah, come forward. There aren't that many people in the audience, and I want to hear from everybody in the village. I don't care who it is, okay? And I don't really care what they have to say, okay?
Please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Gordine McKenzie, 7315 Guadalupe Trail, Northwest. I am a participant in the grassroots organization, and our goals have been to collaborate with the village and to help make the village a wonderful, wonderful place. To follow up on what Joe was saying, my partner Nancy and I created an ad at the request and in conjunction with a lot of our neighbors to run in the village vision. And we paid for 3 months of an ad, and I can pass some around, and I can yeah, I'll keep one to look at. And the ad is basically, on the top of it, it says, keep Los Ranchos rural, protect our open spaces, agriculture, friendly, quiet neighborhoods, wildlife habitat. The village of Los Ranchos was incorporated in 1958 to prevent overdevelopment and to preserve and maintain its semi-rural nature. And then it gave learn more at friendsoflosranchos.com. I could have put it under my business. Many of us have small businesses in the village. I submitted the ad before the deadline, and I was told for the first issue, I was told that there were too many full-page ads, and I understand that, and I know that you have had a lot of full-page ads. So we said, and it's not just myself, this is a collective effort in the neighborhood. I'm just speaking, but I said we would be happy with a smaller ad, any kind of ad, even though we had paid in advance for 3 full-page ads. It's my understanding, and it says so in each of the Los Ranchos Village Vision magazines, the primary mission of the magazine is to promote the spirit of Los Ranchos while informing village residents of events and activities taking place in and around the village. And if you look at the full-page ads, and again, I'm very happy that the magazine is so successful, there were 12 full-page ads. Of the 12, 8 are from outside of Los Ranchos. 3 are for real estate or builders, and 2 are for Jim Long's sawmill district.
Excuse me, could you please finish your thought? Your time is expired.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to say that as residents, we would love to have, representation too, and be able to run our ads as they are.
Thank you, Gordine.
Gordine, I'll make a comment very quickly. I
Sure.
will take a look at this ad, and I will meet with my staff and figure out what may have happened. But I think it's important for people to be able to run ads in the magazine, provided they are appropriate.
Yes.
And we'll get back to you on this, if you don't mind.
I appreciate that, Mayor Lopez, and I think a lot of things, if I may make a further comment, are consistent with the village goals in the
understand.
master plan of 2035 as I read it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Hey, I'm Nancy Nangeroni, 7315 Guadalupe Trail, and thank you for your time and for all the work you do and for putting up with my 3 minutes. And I just want to add to what's been said a little bit. This village vision is our village. It's the printed representation of our village. And right now, the advertising is dominated by out-of-town and development interests. And I think it's really important that conservation interests be equally represented in the magazine. because we know there's a lot of people who are conservation oriented, right? We had over 600 signatures on our petitions. That's 10% of our population that is conservation oriented with respect to the village. And the magazine hasn't really been reflecting this, and I'm not here to take anyone to task. Not interested in playing the blame game, but it would be wonderful if moving forward, if we could find a better balance. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for taking Gordine up on what she said and for saying you'll get back to her. And I appreciate you all very much. Appreciate the work you all do. I know it's often thankless. And I also know that the magazine, I saw the introduction to the trustees, and I love it. I wish it had been there right after the election. I think that would have been better timing. And it seems obvious that it comes out of this period of conflict that the village has come through between residents and trustees and all. And I appreciate that. I understand it. It's not unreasonable. We all need to get to know each other better. And I applaud that. I just ask that we make sure that we're maintaining a balance that respects the concerns of all of the citizens of the village. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am. Mayor and trustees, that concludes public comment.
Thank you very much. Item 6 is presentations. Traffic in the Village, Public Safety Liaison Fred Radosevich.
Thank you, Mayor and trustees. I'd just like to take a few minutes of your time tonight to talk about traffic in the villages, as we have it's been a topic of discussion, well, ever since I've been here in 2010. And so I spent a little bit of time researching some things, thanks to a couple of suggestions from the trustees. But I'd just like to kind of do a quick overview of what's going on in the village traffic-wise and what we can look forward to in the near future. First, Kiko, if I can get the next slide. Traffic concerns, I get a lot of complaints about the volume. I get a lot of complaints about speeding. And then we also are concerned about pedestrian bicycle safety. One of the things that, we have a lot of pedestrian traffic, we have a lot of bicycle traffic. As the pedestrian traffic, we do not have any sidewalks in the village, with the exception of places on 4th Street. So pedestrians are forced to either walk on the shoulder or actually in the street in a lot of cases. So we're concerned about those issues at the same time. Next slide, Kiko. So one of the things that we do is, or we get from the Middle Rio Grande Council or Regional Council of Governments, is they conduct traffic volume on all of our major streets within the village. Most of the time, every 2 years. Every so often, they may do every year, but they've been doing that for many years. So we have a lot of historical data on 4th Street, Rio Grande, El Pueblo, Ranchitos, Chavez, and Osuna. Those are the main streets that they do. Next slide, Kiko. So that's a map, typical map that they produce every 2 years. Just to give you some highlights, this is a map from 2022. Ortega has anywhere from 800 to 1,400 vehicles a day. El Pueblo, approximately 2,800 vehicles a day. Ranchitos, 1,600. Chavez Road, 3,900. Rio Grande, depending on which area of Rio Grande you're on, can go anywhere from 5,100 to 6,800 vehicles per day. 4th Street, again, depending on the area, anywhere from 7,500 to 15,100 vehicles per day. And they kind of break down 4th Street, especially based kind of like north of El Pueblo to probably Ranchitos, and then to Osuna, and then south of Osuna. Next slide, Kiko. So I just took a comparison, and this is one of the roads that we did, Chavez Road. Back in 2000, there was approximately 3,500 vehicles a day that go up Chavez Road. And you can see that graph, and you may not be able to read it, I apologize for the small numbers. But at the height, we've seen about 4,800 vehicles a day. 2021, there was about 3,900 vehicles per day. So it fluctuates, but one of the things that kind of stood out to us is that during the pandemic and the closures and everything where there wasn't a lot of traffic or people going to work, that number stayed the same. So we're not sure why that is. I've got some ideas, but I can't quantify them. But it was kind of interesting where we did see, and I did a breakdown of all the other roads. El Pueblo and Ortega, we saw a tremendous decrease in vehicles on those roads during the pandemic. Next slide, Kiko. So what is the village doing? We have speed boards. While they may not completely slow down traffic, it does have some effect when it's all said and done. We have permanent speed boards. We have 4 on Rio Grande, 2 on Ranchitos, 1 on Chavez, 1 on Osuna, 1 on El Pueblo, 1 on North 4th Street that we just put in recently. And the village has purchased 4 more permanent boards, and 2 of those will go on Ortega, and the other 2 will go actually on 4th Street in the new project area that we just completed. So we can take the mobile speed boards off of 4th Street that we have. Mobile speed boards, and we have 3 that are working. We have 3 that has a limited amount of data collection that we use, and then we have 2 new ones on order. And one of the things that speed boards does, it not only shows the speed, but it also calculates the traffic counts for us, and it also gives us how fast people are going, and it creates a lot of data for us when it's all said and done. Kiko? The other thing we do is Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department, of course, works traffic. In 2019, they conducted about 1,200 traffic stops within the village. 2020, that went down to 762. A lot of that reason is they quit making a lot of traffic stops during COVID. That's around the country. We've seen a slight increase in 2021, slowly getting back into it. And excuse me, in 2022, about 700 through November. One of the things we've seen in New Mexico, our fatality rate in the state of New Mexico is a 20-year high. And a part of that is related to a lack of enforcement. We've seen that nationwide in the state. So we're working with our law enforcement partners to try and increase that. Kiko, next slide. So traffic calming measures, there's a lot of things we can do. We have law enforcement, of course, speed boards, conversations about speed humps, speed cushions, speed tables, raised crosswalks, raised intersections, and I won't go through the entire list, but there's a lot of things, lane striping, chicanes, traffic circles, lane narrowing. There's a lot of things that can be done to try and slow down traffic somewhat. Some of them are very expensive, some are inexpensive, and so we'll talk about some of the things that the village has planned. Next slide, Kiko. So one of the things, I got some of this information off of a website, and I'll give you the information at the very end, but likelihood of acceptability of traffic calming measures. One of the things we found out when we try and do some traffic calming, some people like it, some people don't, depending on who you are. So they kind of did these surveys and these studies, and this is just an idea, 1 being that people don't like it at all, and 5 being that they do like it. It just kind of depends on the types of streets and that type of stuff. A lot of people like them on residential roads. They don't like them on collector roads and that type of stuff. Okay. Next slide, Kiko. So there's a lot of talk about speed humps. They're appropriate for residential and local or any street where the primary function is to provide access to abutting residential property. That's where we've kind of looked at putting it. Well, we've done some, Guadalupe Trail, we've done some on Ranchitos, there's some others in the village, and so they're also appropriate for neighborhood or residential collector streets. Next slide, Kiko. So speed humps are the raised areas of pavement, sometimes 12 to 14 feet in length. Again, appropriate for residential and local streets, and appropriate for residential and neighborhood collectors. So one of the things we've tried to do is, I'm going to use Chavis Road for an example. We've been looking at that, had a lot of people talk to us about that. I don't know what the classification is, because I know Maria was looking for that, but it's a collector road, maybe a minor arterial, I don't know the actual wording on it. But as you can see from the vehicle count, a lot of vehicles go up Travis Road, okay? So one of the things is on speed humps, you want to keep, if you're going to do it right, you want to keep the speed limit to 25 miles an hour, right? So that means that the vehicle ought to be able to travel at 25 miles an hour and go over those speed humps. If you go on some of the other residential streets we have them, you cannot do that. And there's a reason for that on some of the residential streets, okay? One street in Albuquerque that we've looked at and that we spent some time looking at is on Matthew Road. If you go on Rio Grande and then you go east on Rio Grande, there's several speed humps. They call them speed tables. There's a lot of different names for them, but you can actually drive 25 miles an hour and go over those without a problem. If you start going too fast, it creates you a bit of a problem, okay? Next slide. So there's also a speed cushion, and what that speed cushion is, it's a series of the speed humps, but it gives you lateral places, so there's no raised pavement for emergency vehicles to go through, fire trucks, rescues, and ambulances. So that's another alternative that we can look at. Next slide, Kiko. Speed tables, again, a little bit longer, and I think even though it says speed humps on Matthews Road in Albuquerque, I really think that's a speed table, and maybe George can help me with that, but I think that's the proper definition of that. They're a little bit longer and a lot wider, but they do slow traffic down and they keep it to 25 miles an hour. Next slide. So the raised crosswalks, basically a speed table, but you put it where the crosswalks are. Again, it makes people slow down, and it's very effective, and it'll be a properly marked crosswalk so that people will be able to see it. Raised intersection, the next one, Kiko, and you can just go past that because I know it's kind of redundant on what I'm talking about. The next thing I want to talk about is automated speed enforcement, speed cameras. Some people have suggested that we look at that. Under New Mexico state statute, we're authorized to do that. They're considered a nuisance. You can't put them on any state or federal highway as of today, but you can put them on any municipal road or county road or whatever. So one of the things on that is the maximum fee can only be $100 set by state statute. Of that $100, 50% of it goes to the state of New Mexico automatically. And then you can use the rest of it for paying for the speed cameras, the company, and then whatever goes back into the general fund. Next slide, Kiko. Again, that just goes to where the money goes to. So one of the things, next slide, Kiko, one of the things we have to do, we'd have to enact an ordinance. Once the ordinance is approved, then we would submit requests for proposals for companies to come in and do the speed cameras, tell us what they do and how much they're going to charge us and everything. In Mexico, you have to have a police officer review all the infractions, and then the company will then send out violation notices. You have to have a hearing officer for if anybody appeals it, and at that point, then they can appeal it and make a difference. These are civil penalties, they're not criminal, and people don't have to pay them in reality. Now, one of the things Bernalillo County is talking about implementing speed cameras. Albuquerque already has them, and if the village is prone to go this way, that may be an opportunity for us to piggyback on their system. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel and go and do some things. So that may be an option that we can do. Next slide, Kiko. So speed cameras can be either permanent or mobile. Rio Rancho has mobile speed vans. I think they have 8 vans that they move around the city. Albuquerque has picked the permanent ones mostly, where they have them in specific areas. And they have been somewhat successful according to Albuquerque. There was an article in the Albuquerque Journal, I think in December 27th or 28th. Only 52% of the people paid their fees. The rest of them ignored it. Less than 1% appeal, so the people that do, they just usually pay it and just move on. Average of about 4,300 notices of violation per month in the city of Albuquerque. Over the first year, they collected $1 million. Of that, 650,000 went to the camera company, and then the state got 50% of that, of the rest of it, and then the municipality got the rest of that. So with that, next slide, Kiko. So what are we looking at doing in the village? Well, doing a traffic analysis. Maria has been working on that to do the traffic flows and stuff. We're coming up with a policy on actually when we place speed boards, when citizens complain, so that we can track the data, get it to the sheriff's office, and then get some results from the sheriff's office on the traffic enforcement part of it. Again, as I said, if the village wants to do the speed cameras, I would hope that maybe we could piggyback with Bernalillo County, and so they can do a lot of the process for us. And then one of the things the village is already doing is on any new road improvements, they're including traffic calming measures in the design. So hopefully we can try and keep the traffic slowed down. And Mayor and trustees, that's my presentation, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
I would offer this comment. My mic on. George, correct me if I'm wrong, but the 4th Street project, which cost almost $9 million, was a traffic calming design.
Yes.
4 lanes before, 3 lanes after, 35 miles per hour before, 25 after, sidewalks, et cetera, et cetera. So the village, in my opinion, is committed to doing this sort of thing. And so we're gonna work hard. We're gonna talk to all of the residents who live around there. Maybe the solutions that we come up with, some of them could be temporary, some of them could be permanent. And that's kind of the way I see it. Thank you, Fred. I don't know if the trustees want to comment at all.
Go on.
Go ahead.
Good presentation. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And it raised a couple of questions. So, you know, we have several speed humps on Guadalupe Trail. And one of the perhaps unintended consequences of that is a bicyclist told me that he tries to avoid speed humps. And there's a lot of bicyclists on Guadalupe Trail, and there still are. So not everyone's doing that. But when I did see that one photo of the speed hump that had for emergency vehicles, where, you know, all it takes is a very narrow lane for the bicycle to go through to avoid the hump, right?
Correct.
I mean, I don't know if that's something that can be considered.
Trustee Benavides, I think that could be included in any type of design that we put together, to be honest with you.
To make it friendly for that. And then it was very curious looking at your bar graph of the traffic on Chavez over the years and what led to the decline. And you see the hump for 2019 and 2020, I think, is where you see the hump. And the speculation was maybe COVID has something to do with that. But the other thing that probably had an impact on traffic on Chavez as well as Guadalupe Trail is the construction on 4th Street.
Correct.
So when that was happening, I did notice, I mean, I didn't stand out there with a counter, but so very subjectively, I noticed an uptick in the traffic. And after it was completed, it took a little time, but it started to come back to where it was before. So that might explain some of that anomaly that you see. We have a new sheriff. And, you know, I've been bringing this up to you and in the village meetings as well, that, boy, I wish we could just get somebody to patrol every now and then. It probably doesn't take much, but, you know, if there was a county police officer out there and that just randomly shows up at different places so that nobody knows when they might be there, that would probably make a huge difference. And, you know, the answer that came back was, well, all you have to do is call them. And it's like, well, why do we have to keep calling them? You know, by the time you call them, the traffic has calmed down, and you kind of missed the point, you know, of getting them out there. So maybe we could revisit that and see with the new sheriff and see if we can get more officers to patrol. It doesn't have to be a lot, but boy, you know, just, and I do see them actually on El Pueblo between 4th and 2nd. That's where I see them most often. And I'm sure there's a lot of speeding that goes on at that location, but I rarely see them anywhere else. So that's all I have. Thanks. George, do you have any comments?
I don't really have any comments. The presentation was great, Fred. I guess I do have one comment. The new speed bumps that we put on Ranchitos.
Yes.
Those do not allow you to go 25.
They do not. And the two places we put them on Ranchitos was right before and after the ditch, where we've had some significant crashes of people, as our former administrator used to say, Kelly Ward, ramping the ditch. So we purposely put those there to keep people from trying to do that.
Yep, and I think that's a really good comment and a really good idea. My question is, that is, and I may be wrong, Maria, you may know, Fred. Is El Pueblo, is Ranchitos an arterial? Is it a collector or
she has all the technology or technical things.
It's
minor arterial?
It's a major collector.
Major collector.
Yes, all of our east-west are major collectors off of 4th Street, between 4th Street and Rio Grande, and all the way to 2nd Street.
And then answering Loretta's question, what is Chavez Road?
It's the same. It's a major collector.
Major collector?
Yes.
It's not an arterial?
No.
So 4th Street and Rio Grande are the only arterials in the village?
Correct. And they are they're considered minor arterials.
Interesting. Okay. That's all I have.
So just one comment to answer Trustee Benavidez's question about the Sheriff's Department. I'd had some discussions with the previous North Valley commander about the village actually paying for a deputy full-time. They were in favor of that. I have talked to the new sheriff, Sheriff Allen. Of course, he's just now getting his feet wet, but and he is at least open to discuss it. So that may be something we can look at definitely doing.
That's great news.
Yeah.
It is.
Trustee Allen.
One more question, I'm sorry. Not a question, but a comment, and apologies, I just missed my note. It's interesting to me that state highways and federal highways cannot have any kind of traffic calming on them, because I think most of the noise in a big chunk of the village comes from Paseo del Norte. And another big chunk comes from Rio Grande.
They're not allowed to have speed cameras.
Speed cameras.
Right, just strictly speed cameras. Now, I will tell you, there's supposed to be a bill introduced in this session that will allow it. Whether it goes anywhere, we don't know yet.
Let me interject. Trustee Alan Lewis, do you have any comments on this?
Yes, I do, Fred.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Fred. That was a wonderful presentation. As I'm looking at traffic calming measures, your list of traffic calming measures, can you tell me what chicanes or chicanes are? I mean, I understand what the rest of the options are. I just don't know what that terminology means.
Trustee Lewis, I'm going to ask Trustee Radovich. I can explain it, but I think he can probably explain it a lot better than I can.
I'll let you.
No, go ahead.
Well, chicanes are for trails. Chicanes are a different thing than on roadways, but for trails, they are, let's see, a multi-turn device that is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're speaking of. Okay. All right, that was my only question. I understood all the others, but I didn't understand what that was at all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fred.
Thanks, Fred.
We're going to move to item 7, minutes, December 14th, 2022, regular meeting. I need a motion to approve the December 14th, 2022 minutes.
I want to make a motion to approve the minutes with a minor amendment.
Go ahead.
Now I gotta get back. Let's see, I made a comment in the minutes during the informal discussion about Eddie Garcia being inducted to the New Mexico Music Hall of Fame.
Okay.
So it's the Music Hall of Fame, if you could add the word music.
Music.
And perhaps I didn't say music. I didn't watch the video. But,
I got it.
okay, thanks.
Need a second.
I don't know if I can second it since I wasn't here, Mayor. Can I?
Yes, yes, you can.
You
I
can.
can.
Yes.
I did watch the videos. So.
Yes, as long as you, it's approving the minutes and the meeting, it's, even though you're absent, you can approve.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Danielle.
I second.
That's fine. I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. We're going to go to departmental reports at this time. The departmental reports are included in the packet and reflect all the activities listed. Ms. Rinaldi would like to expand on her report. Ms. Rinaldi, if you will go ahead. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, trustees. Just really quickly, is Ms. Chavez still in there? So you understand that Chavez is a major collector?
Yes.
And I can show you, give you a copy of that map.
No, you're fine. What it is, I'll get with you guys later on, okay?
Okay.
About the question on that being related.
And yes, and one quick correction, Trustee Radnovich, 4th Street is a principal arterial and Rio Grande Boulevard is a minor arterial.
Makes sense.
Yes, okay, so we closed out completely Bradbury Stam's contract in 4th Street Phase 1. Their payment is pending. I think those checks are going out this week. So I just want to go over the contract status with you really quickly. With all of the change orders, the final contract amount was $7,460,129. And then with all of the credits back after the balance of units, the cost per unit item on the contract for everything from asphalt to gravel to drainage facility to plants, with all the credits back to us for units not expended, what we finally paid at the end of the entire contract to Bradbury Stam is $7,317,731.
Maria, may I
Yes.
get you to speak into the mic, please?
Yes. So this project, construction closeout, and it's pending audit by NMDOT. But yay, we're finally there. So I'm actually going to drop this off the next report and just bring it back up when the audit is complete, if that's fine with everyone. Preliminary engineering for subsequent phases 2A through 2C. We have closed out and submitted all invoices to NMDOT on the 30% design. We have all deliverables from BHI and pending their payment, also going out this week, I believe. It's all been submitted to DOT and that one will drop off the books as well. Just a couple of quick notes on that. That funding also paid for about $5,000 of my fee to the village as well. So that was great. Final engineering on the phases, subsequent phases as well, to get us to 100% design. I sent an email to the Board of Trustees giving you the preliminary agenda on the value planning study exercise that we'll be doing for 2.5 days. Please take a look at that and let me know. And sign the agreement with Parametrics today so I can send out a revised final agenda for you as well. That fee approved by NMDOT and to be paid for by NMDOT funds is $37,209.59. So we look forward to going through that. We have been following up on a request to change the scope of our funding for the Transportation Project Fund, NMDOT, also to include design to cover the increase in design fees that we are seeing. And we'll let you know how that goes. Still waiting for status in some of our outstanding applications. As explained in my report here. We're still, the big one that Ann has been chasing our congressional delegation on is the 21 million federal funding surface transportation.
27, isn't it?
21 million plus our match. So, but we submitted that as a full project to Ortega, and we also submitted it as 2A from Pueblo Solano to Ranchitos. So we continuously hear that that status is pending and that we should be hearing soon. We'll just continue to track that. I did submit a project proposal under the Transportation Improvement Plan through the Council of Governments. That was due in December, and that was in, and it is now going on through staff review at the Council of Governments, and we are to be prepared to present our project for evaluation and ranking in the month of February. So I shall let you know how that goes. Those are the big ones that are outstanding. I'm going to move on to the Agri-Nature Center improvements. We did receive a third scope revision with cost, and we've asked some questions on some unit prices that did not seem to change from the more recent second iteration of that. And we are told that we will have an answer sometime tomorrow so that we can make a decision as to whether or not we're going to move forward with this bidder franking construction, or if we're going to try again by putting it out there through the state price agreement one more time. Everything, it seems we're holding up everything at the Agri-Nature Center with this roadway. It's so significant. The placement of this, the construction that it will occur has many impacts on Joshua's operation out there and additional plans for trails and raised beds. So we're really trying to get this one moving along. I don't have anything else to say on Agri-Nature Center. If you have any questions on the outdoor classroom, the Village Center site infrastructure under the construction per plan and per their paid bond is underway. And co-op, the crack seal portion has been completed and accepted by the village. And we are soliciting quotes for additional repairs on Las Campañas. There was some asphalt cracking that was beyond the ability for crack seal to fix. So we will actually be doing some little bit more major repair on Las Campañas, but other than that, that whole part of the project is done. And we're just waiting for Albuquerque Asphalt to give us their day to begin. They have from January 15th to March 30th. We will let you know when. I'll send you out an email, give you a heads up when that is about to happen. And I'm in the process of putting our funding application together for the next round of co-op. That's due March 15th. And what we're doing right now is we're determining what our maximum matchability on that project is so that we can determine how many roads we can submit for improvements. Chavez Road, we executed the funding agreement, have submitted it to NMDOT and are just waiting for it to come back to us. That triggers our ability to start obligating funds under that grant, and I will immediately issue a request for proposals for professional services to begin the right-of-way survey and preliminary engineering, drainage design, underground utility exploration, and those types of things. And, the RFE for transportation analysis, which was issued through the COG, we received proposals. We formed our committee of staff between the Village of Los Ranchos and Mr. COG, and we are currently reviewing and evaluating those individually, and we will have a committee meeting sometime around January 20th to rate and rank as a committee and make a recommendation for selection to bring to the Board of Trustees. I believe that is all I have for you this evening, unless you have any questions.
Okay, do the trustees have any questions for Maria? And I'll start trustee by trustee. Trustee Lewis.
Yes, good evening, Maria.
Good evening.
First of all, thank you for a wonderful job in getting 4th Street wrapped up. I know you will probably sleep much better tonight knowing this is off the calendar. So My first question, can you go into a little bit for everybody participating tonight? You know, it's wonderful that we apply for all these grants. Some of them come back and it's a real tough decision for Board of Trustees on whether we can afford to match that grant or not. Can you talk about a little bit of the process we go through for everybody?
Certainly. First of all of the projects are, we work off of the Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan, the ICIP. All our projects are on that to show a priority and a ranking for a local planning document. Secondly, because the project has been phased, as well as we often submit as a full project all the way to Ortega, there's so many funding sources from a federal to a state level. And the first thing we look at is match requirements. Can we make the match? Do we have enough local funds, generally through the combined fuel tax revenue that we receive? That's generally our match amount. So the first thing we look at is what is the required match? The state NMDOTs are generally 12.5 to 14.6 local fund match, proportionate to the departments. One application that we did not recently submit for, that we qualified for and would have ranked very high, was called Connecting Communities. It was a Build Back Better federal infrastructure grant. For a construction project, the match was 50%. On a $23 million project, as you know, we do not have that match capacity. So first of all, Trustee Lewis, Mayor, we look at, is the project prioritized locally through the public input process and approved by the Board of Trustees? Do we qualify based on our roadway classification, functional classification, and can we make that match? Anytime I submit proposals, I send the match calculations through the administrator, the mayor, and our chief financial officer to say these are the required matches. Do we have the budget authority? Do we have to do a budget adjustment? And can we accept these if awarded? The Board of Trustees is the final decision maker on acceptance of any award. And generally, we receive notice of funding award. We have to accept it at that point in time, understanding what the criteria is. What are the local government's responsibility? Can we fulfill the scope in the period of time that the money is allocated for? And we look at that, and if we as staff believe that, along with our consultants, we make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees. You don't see a lot of them because we do a lot of preliminary pre-applications. And if it comes back to us that, for example, right now, we have the Clean Water Revolving Loan Fund. We have been awarded that money for loan. We're holding off on accepting that because we are unsure at this point in time whether or not we can use existing funds as match. So we evaluate all of the requirements. Primarily, do we have the fiscal ability to complete the project scope per that agreement?
Maria, thank you very much. I think that's very important for everybody to understand how the process works.
Yes.
My next question, the ever infamous road to the Ag Center, how are we coming on the value engineering? Can you go a little more into detail about that?
Yes. Mayor, Trustee Lewis, trustees, we requested quotes through the state price agreement based on our scope, based on the engineering for BHI for the use of that roadway for its purpose to be served. We had an engineer's estimate that was slightly over the funding available, so we started to engineer it back. Then we solicited quotes, and the quotes came in significantly higher than the engineer's estimate, and worse, significantly higher than the funding available. So we have been chipping away at that project to the point where it is functionally a roadway, but it is nothing more than a roadway. There is no porphyry stone, pattern amenity. There's very little curbing, only what is required to direct flows to the south side of the road. And we've eliminated the parking lot, the service road on the south end, and the north road to the, what is it called? Auxiliary parking lot, if you will. So we're trying to get this project into the range of $400,000. We believe that as of this afternoon, we're really close. We'll see our questions about concrete unit prices. Didn't seem to change even though we reduced a significant amount of concrete curbing. So when we have that qualification tomorrow, we'll know where we stand, trustee.
So Maria, my question is, at what point do we value engineer it to where it's not the roadway at all that we want and we walk away from the project? I mean, will it still be the project we want at 400,000, or are we getting close to that point?
Mayor, Trustee Lewis, I think we were a little overly ambitious on the engineering of that roadway. You know, we had entrance improvements, we had pedestrian pathways crossing vehicular roadway and such. This is very much still very much in character with its setting. It will still be a much improved functional roadway from Rio Grande Boulevard through the property. So we're not ready to cut bait yet. Give us a few more days. We also, the funding that we have in place has been obligated for roadway improvements. So we'd have to change that as well. It's just, this has been a pretty onerous for such a small project. It's been pretty onerous. First of all, price increases. I'm at a loss as any other explanation except for that.
I appreciate all you've done on it. I think we have to be very mindful of when it no longer becomes the roadway we want, and that we have to cut bait, as you say, and re-examine it. But if we're still on track to get a roadway that we want, then I'm all for it. But I think we need to be very mindful of when it becomes something that we don't want, but we have funding for it, then we need to cut bait. So
absolutely.
Thank you for all your hard work on it, and I have no further questions.
Trustee Benavidez.
Yes, I have some questions for you, and I know you're juggling a lot of projects, and I should have some sympathy for you, but I'm going to ask you some hard questions. How involved is our lobbyist in helping us secure some funding?
Mayor, Trustee Benavides, that's actually not a question I can answer. That's more appropriate for the mayor and the administrator.
Yes, I can answer the question. Our lobbyist was hired recently. She is going to be a lobbyist for the entire year. Am I correct? And she will be in Santa Fe for the entire legislative session. I will be working closely with her up in Santa Fe to make sure that we do everything in our power to get funding from the legislature to help us with all of these obligations that we have. I can tell you, in my 30 years as mayor and a trustee, there has never been this kind of level of infrastructure projects, including the acquisition of open space, the Agri-Nature Center, Del Norte Open Space, the crack seal. I can remember 7 years ago asking the question of our administration, when are we going to start maintaining our roads? I never got an answer. Well, that day has come. You can't let the roads just disintegrate and not maintain them. So that's our problem, okay?
Of course, I think getting money from the state is to work on our roads is a very positive thing, to leverage other people's money. But at the same time, we're not the only ones that benefit from improving the road. I mean, I hope the state understands that. It's not just the village residents that are using these roads, and these are scenic byways, and they have value to the entire state. into the county. So yes, there definitely should be leveraging of money for that purpose. So, I was thinking about what is a reasonable percentage that the village should pay. And I think when we started down this journey, we were looking at something maybe like 20% kind of figures. And so I'm looking at your different options here, and I'm looking at just the part for the 2A, Pueblo Solano to Ranchitos, and that estimate is basically 8.9 or 9 million, close to that. And so I look at the funding that we have so far, 3.4 million, and then there's another, looks like 1.7 million that in one of your bullets. So that leaves, if that's all we get, and just for phase 2A, that leaves an amount of 3.9 million for the village. So now we're at 43%. That's a pretty high percentage for that. Now, if on your second bullet, if you talk about getting the 21 million and where we kick in the 5.6 million, this is getting back to the 20%. So, and of course, that was for the entire project, but as a percentage, that is a much more appealing percentage. And I'm worried that we're getting a creep in the price. Care to respond? Go ahead.
Yes, Mayor, Trustee Benavides, I shoot for a range of 12.5% match to 16.5% match on all of our funding applications. And I really appreciate your comment about the impact to the region. All of our applications are based on that. Based on the functional classification in the Albuquerque urbanized area, our connectivity directly to facilities like Paseo del Norte, as a commuter throughway on many of our roadways connecting to all parts of Albuquerque and through the state of New Mexico, plus our significance as scenic byways such as Camino Real.
Yes.
Those things are all part of our application. But back to the project creep, we don't have the ability to fund a match greater than 16.5% at this time. So that's what our goal is, not to exceed that. And the other thing that I failed to mention when I was answering Trustee Lewis's question is that sometimes we have to decide. We can fund this application award if we can use our existing state funds to match. Some programs allow state funds to match, meet your local match requirement, so then that's a 0 for us. So there's so many moving pieces, but the goal is 12.5 to 16.5% of project total.
Thank you, and I'm going to remember those percentages. Okay, so agri-nature improvements. I see the first bullet there is 250K. Has that been dedicated to something? I mean, I'm thinking about the trolley. Is that what that is? Okay.
Mayor Trustee, that is not, I can tell you just right off the bat that is not for the trolley. That is the 200, are you asking the 20, I'm sorry, can you tell me which amount again? 2019 legislative appropriation?
Yeah, so at the top of the page under agri-nature center improvements.
Yes.
Funding in place, first bullet.
Yes, so 2019, 2020, those are, and some of 2019 has been expended on engineering and design fees for the roadway. That's all roadway.
Okay.
Okay. Outdoor classroom are the other two currently existing.
Outdoor classroom, 175K. It must be some classroom, right?
So it's a demonstration kitchen.
Right, okay.
It's an outdoor classroom in a plaza-like setting. Mara Reardon Wilkinson Miller was issued a task order under retainer for the design of this, and we don't have any estimates yet.
Okay, all right. Let's see, next page, page 39, Chavis Road Multi-Use Trail Project. So I know you talked about this and you said RFPs are gonna go out and that's when we know the cost. But before we go down this road, we must have some ballpark guess
Yes,
of what that might be, right? What do you think?
I can
For
tell you.
construction?
Well, we don't. I can tell you why. I know that our engineering and our right-of-way survey are accurate because those are based on solicited cost estimates at the time of application. If we must require right-of-way in certain sections along Chavis Road to make a continuous trail, that's something we will not know until the right-of-way survey is done. And then the cost, of course, depends on how significant that acquisition is. We don't have a design at this time. We know some minor things like required width for the safety of the trail. We know some very limited parameters, but I could tell you similar projects, costs, but those projects are completed, and with prices the way they are at the moment, I wouldn't even want to hazard a guess until we know what our utility, right-of-way, and environmental.
But I mean, it seems like you had to ballpark it like a worst case, right? I mean, we know it's gonna be greater than 1.8 million, right?
Yes.
Because that's not even getting into the construction yet.
Yes.
But I don't know if is this a $5 million project, a $10 million project? We should be able to ballpark it, I think. You don't have to answer me now.
Yes, no.
But think about it.
I can give you some comparables. On my next report, I will give you some comparables with the date of completion at those costs for your information, but that's exactly what they are, not considering the inflationary costs we're seeing for construction. But I can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
That's all.
Okay, trustee Radnovich.
Maria, I just have a couple of things, really. Can you explain what is left on the Agri-Nature Center? Can you, not what we've taken out, but what is left?
Mayor, Trustee Radnovich, excuse me, I can show you the plan. Can I send that to you?
Sure.
Okay. So what we've basically done is we have eliminated curb and gutter on all sides of the roadway, just to the curb for directional flows of drainage.
Just to the curb?
Just the only curb that's left
Right.
is what's required for drainage, to direct drainage as the road is sloped to drain to the south. It's easier for me to show you on the plan set everything we've eliminated, if I may.
Yeah.
Basically now it's grading compaction and finishing with a crusher fine-like material the entire length.
So do we have a roadway that's basically gravel, some type of gravel, no curb and gutter, except where there's drainage? I don't know where the drainage would be.
So it's, yeah, I can show you.
That's okay. Then when we get to the building itself, is the roundabout thing?
Still there.
Teardrop still there?
Still there,
And then that's all gravel now, though?
yes.
And is there any curb and gutter there?
No.
So is there sidewalk there?
There is one portion of sidewalk and there's some concrete for handicap parking.
Oh, and the handicap parking is asphalt? Or
Concrete.
Concrete. So it doesn't have to be concrete.
It doesn't have to be concrete, but
And actually, it doesn't have to be, well, yeah, it doesn't have to be concrete. Wow. So that's all that's left. Have you looked at, I mean, that teardrop is big, really big. Have you looked at just asking the contractor if it were cut by 20% or something like that, would we get there?
so that would.
It's awfully large.
Yeah, Mayor,
It's gigantic.
that's actually a really good suggestion. We will discuss that. That might be more of an engineering
It might even
question
be
than the
more at
contractor.
scale.
Yeah,
Because I know a lot of people like that idea, that big teardrop, but it's a gigantic.
it's very large. Hang on, I just.
Okay, that's great.
May I just make a note of that real quick so I follow up on that tomorrow?
Okay.
Thank you.
And this is a more general question about the Agri-Nature Center. Could we have gotten away, or could we just get away with not following the plan, just graveling the road and the parking that we have. Just, just a really simple job. I'm wondering what was the reason for the project in the first place?
So we could do pretty much anything we would like to do, specifically, especially since we have funding limitations. But so it was intended to create connectivity for all the uses in the Agri-Nature Center at its maximum use. When there might be an auxiliary parking for large events on the north end of the thing, to provide full service access to serve the building itself with larger vehicles and even farm equipment without conflicting with equestrian, pedestrian, and small vehicle traffic off of Rio Grande through the property. And it was also meant to be like a great entrance to this phenomenal facility, to represent what it means to the village and what it represents as a center for regional excellence. So, based on the master plan of the approved master plan for the Agri-Nature Center.
Are you talking about, when you say the small vehicles and pedestrians versus the road, you're not talking about at Rio Grande Boulevard, are you?
No, I was talking specifically about there's a service road proposed that splits off and goes directly to the south side of the building. You remember that?
Where it splits off before you get to the teardrop.
So that was all of this. It was parking lot to the north. It was parking lot at the bottom of the teardrop for all facility parking for daily purposes. It was pedestrian, equestrian access. It was all of that.
I see.
It's a very grand plan. Unfortunately, the funding is not as grand as the plan.
Well, and that was part of my issue from the beginning. Mm-hmm. It was very grand. Okay, I think that's all I had on that. The other thing I was going to mention is, or just ask, is 4th Street a state highway?
No, it is not.
Not anymore. It was US 85 years ago. It was Route 66 many years ago.
I knew the answer, Mayor. I just wanted to ask the question.
Yeah, no, Mayor George, Trustee Radnovich, it's never been a state highway.
So for the purposes of just the residents of Los Ranchos, why is, because I know the answer to this, I believe, but I just want to hear it from you. Why is NMDOT willing to fund a project that is not in their purview, that is not a state road?
Mayor Trustee Radnovich, local governments have access to the competitive process just by the fact that we are a governmental entity, and NMDOT serves all governmental entities.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks, Maria.
Any more questions?
Oh, I do have other questions on other reports.
Okay, well, we're going to get to that in a moment. Okay, so if the governing body has questions on any of the remaining staff reports, we will have each trustee ask all their questions before we move to the next trustee. We start with Trustee Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me go through my notes here. My first question's for Administrator Simon. Good evening, Ann.
Hi.
So my first question involves the Business Development and Agritourism Committee. At the end of your report, it says the committee is waiting guidance from the Board of Trustees on how to move forward. Where are we at on that?
All right, thank you, Mayor and Trustee Lewis. The Business and Economic Development Group presented through a presentation from Dr. Harvey White the 3 activity areas that we're focused on. The 3 activities are, or the 3 areas are activities that will generate community cohesion, interest in coming to visit the village, and then just events and things for residents to take part in. Number 2 is some sort of a heritage center where we can It might be virtual initially. It might end up being some kind of a facility, but it would be a place to house archival material, to be able to tell the story of Los Ranchos and our agriculture heritage, and maybe our linkages with the Route 66 and Camino Real and other historical stories. And then the final idea presented from this committee was a branding campaign. And it could either be a tagline, some kind of marketing material, and or just plain signage, because it has been brought to our attention that it's difficult for people to find the village, the center of the village, where the retail area is, and just generally wayfinding around our village. So those are the three kind of areas that Dr. White presented, and I think the committee was hoping to get a little bit of guidance, not just an attaboy kind of pat on the back, but in fact, yes, we would like to move particular things forward, and what are they? I mean, these are really great folks who have come together about 7 times in the last year, and I'm afraid we're going to lose them if we don't get some clear direction. I think that was the issue.
I guess I don't understand. This is a business development committee, and so what are they looking from the board of trustees? I mean, they've come forward with some great things. What's their plan? I'm not sure. I don't see what we're supposed to weigh in on, other than they make their decision. They've come up with some great ideas, and they need to move forward. I wasn't aware that they were waiting for anything from the board of trustees, and I guess I'm not really aware of why or what they're looking from the board of trustees. So I guess I would like you to talk to that committee and say, if there's something they need from us, then come to us and state it clearly.
Gotcha.
Don't say that they're inactive because they're waiting for some arbitrary something from us. I don't feel like that's appropriate at this time. So
gotcha.
That's my feeling.
Mayor, okay.
My second is I'd like a little more detail in your report. You were talking about the Citizens Advisory Committee that I'm very excited about, and I think it's a wonderful committee of well-represented village residents. Again, I'm looking forward. Is there anything they are looking forward to us at this time, or are they? We haven't been presented anything at this point, and I want to make sure I'm not missing something. If there is something they brought forward that we were supposed to respond to.
Thank you, Mayor, Trustee Lewis. The committee will be bringing forward changes, proposed changes to the C1 zone. We have a number of things that the committee is looking at. C1 is the first zone that they're proposing changes. We're next going to handle proposed changes to the village center zone, and then finally proposed changes to the pilot project. I'm turning to Director Rubin to see if she has anything to add, but there's nothing for you to consider yet. We hope to be bringing this forward to you next month.
Thank you, Ann, Mayor, and Trustee Lewis. Yeah, nothing to add to that. So we have not had anything to present as of yet, but we have just wrapped up our preliminary recommendations for edits to the C1 zone language. So that will be coming forthcoming.
Okay, I think this committee is a very important committee in giving us direction and input for the village, and I just wanted to make absolutely sure that there was not anything we were missing on our end that we should be doing at this time. So thank you. My next question is for Joshua. Good evening, Joshua.
He's here.
Good evening, Mayor, Trustee Lewis.
Joshua, I just wanted to touch on the Matanza. How are your plans coming? How's it looking?
Thank you, Mayor, Trustees. The planning is coming along. It's the event is now posted on Eventbrite and our social media, and we're starting to advertise it. We are working on all the permits, and we have the chef and a contract signed with him, as well as all the assistants and food handlers. And we have some bands that will be performing. So we're moving along with all the whole process.
Okay, thank you, Joshua. Great job. My last question is for Fred. Is Fred still there?
Oh, yeah.
Mayor Trustee Lewis, yes.
Hi, Fred. So in your report, could you touch a little bit on citizens' issues, Calle del Pajarito, Tenant Farms Night Skies, and the mail thefts?
Yeah, Mayor Trustee Lewis, those are continuing issues that we actually have, I believe, 2 cases pending in municipal court. A third one is still waiting on some follow-up, but hopefully the 2 issues that are in municipal court will be adjudicated within the next 30 days.
Okay, thank you, Fred.
Is that it, Trustee Lewis?
That's all my questions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Trustee Benavides? Yes. First question for Ann. In regards to the improvement of the irrigation in that project, what is the amount of that loan from the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy?
Mayor, Trustee Benavides, the total is $500,000.
And so we may or may not need all of it?
Correct.
Okay. Do you think we will know by this project of laying down the pipes, it's just, right now you're just clearing the way for that, leveling it, and when do you think that will be done?
Yes, Mayor, Trustee Benavides, we are hoping to wrap the entire project up before the irrigation season begins, which is March, April. So that's coming right up. We do have a design for the project, and we can now go out for competitive bid. So we have to internally decide if we're going to do an RFP, if we're going to just do a straight competitive bid, that kind of thing. And we'll know pricing at that point.
Does that come to the board? Yes. Okay. All right.
And I'm sorry, one more thing. You will be getting a presentation on this next month.
That's correct. Oh, good, good. 500K is not a lot in the grand scheme of the money that we are borrowing. For example, the bond that was passed is $8 million, right? So I'm wanting to keep track of these things because I'm worried about our cash flow. So at some point, I'm going to ask for a demonstration of do we have the cash flow to service these debts and to take care of all these projects, other projects we have going on as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's see, a question for Josh. So yeah, I have you have the bullet about the sorghum threshing event, and I have an interest in that because I tried growing it at one time, as I mentioned to you. The reason this sounds interesting because I keep thinking of ways for the Agri-Nature Center to serve its residents more directly. And given that water may be an issue, and here's a crop that doesn't require as much water and really does well, this might be an example. So this is an example, and I'm hoping there are other things, maybe like grapes, for example. But where I'd like to go with this is have the Agri-Nature Center and folks like yourself get into the economy of what these crops entail, so that we can help our local farmers, maybe farmers that have 2 acres that they can farm,
what might make sense for them. You know, I think we might see, you know, more greenhouses, for example, if water becomes an issue. But maybe there might be these other crops that don't require a greenhouse, right? So in the future, you might see me pointing to more things like that to help our residents, because I'm worried that, you know, 20 years from now, the biggest farmer in the village will be the Los Ranchos government. And I don't know if we can look ourselves in the face and say that we respected our agricultural heritage if it comes to that. So, could you care to comment on that?
Well, I guess my comment would be, I hope more people would want to farm. Farming's a lot of work, and most of the people that are doing it in the village tend to be hobby farmers rather than doing it as an occupation, it seems like. But I do get calls weekly from different landowners in the village saying, I have 2 acres, I have 3 acres, what should I do with it? And we do discuss different cover crops, we discuss grapes, we discuss different opportunities, what they can do with. I first asked about the money they want to spend, the time they have, you know, to put into it. And many of them want to contract farm it, like get somebody to come in and do it for them. So I'm seeing, I haven't seen a lot of residents who actually want to farm.
Well, I mean, maybe if we were more proactive and demonstrating, I mean, obviously you have to factor out the cost of the property, you know, 300,000 plus per acre, you're not going to get a return on your investment. However, if you're interested in keeping that as open space rather than seeing a house be built on there, you have motivation to do that sort of thing. And so, yes, and maybe you want to keep it in the green belt as well, right? So I think maybe being more proactive, and the way we do that is we show people that economically it makes sense to do this crop or that crop, discounting the cost of the land. I just think maybe we could be more proactive. I think your workshops are great, by the way. You know, that's a way of giving back to the community. But you know, there's things like insect control. There's pests that go after grapes and things like that you know might be more interesting. So just a heads up. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. We have put out a couple of surveys during my time here to ask what topics village residents would want to see covered. And based on those is what we've based our workshops on. And so whatever feedback residents have on what they would like to see and what they would like to learn about is very much appreciated. Yeah.
I'd like to add a comment. The John Sparks property is a classic example of a private landowner utilizing that very efficiently. You know, with the Wagner Farms going over there, you have the U-Pick. Then right adjacent to us is Rio Grande Community Farm. You drive up and down Rio Grande Boulevard, there's new vineyards being placed, okay? So, you know, this is a kind of, I won't say it's a moving target, but I think there's interest. And I can tell you, based upon my 4 years working on the Agri-Futures project, we've made, Josh, in my opinion, enormous progress in teaching people within the village the value of farming and what they can do. That's my personal opinion, because I've been hands-on with this thing literally for 4 years.
And so my ignorance is my fault, because I've only been at this for a year, right? And I haven't focused on what you're doing, but I plan to change that focus.
Okay, Trustee Radnovich.
Since you're up there, Josh, I just wanted to say great job on everything you're doing. And just one comment. I don't think I had a comment for you on your report. And this just came to mind because of what Trustee Benavides just mentioned. I don't know if you're familiar with Sandia Labs funded a project in Meoqui, Mexico, probably 8 years ago. And what they did is they were comparing the amount of water they used for growing cattle by pasturing them versus growing wheatgrass in a greenhouse. Amazingly, they saved water by growing the crops in the greenhouse. So they were able to produce more beef and less with less water and less land than otherwise than through just field cropping. And so I just thought that was really interesting because it may be a sign of what the future will bring, and very similar to what you were saying, Trustee. So just a comment. It's not anything more than that. But.
Yeah, and thank you, Mayor and Trustees. As the Mayor mentioned, the Agri-Futures Project, this is the first year that we have a team dedicated to research, and I think that could be really helpful to have more research come out of the Agri-Nature Center to be able to quantify some of these things like water use and some of the cost-benefit analysis of different crops, so that we can publish that and have it available for village residents.
That's great. Thanks, Josh. So one of the things that was in the mayor's report, actually, I thought was I don't remember it last year, and it seemed odd to me. So I'm a registered landscape architect.
Right.
The mayor's an engineer.
Right.
It didn't seem right to me that the village is paying for the mayor's license. What would hold the village back from paying for my license?
Nothing. Absolutely
And why
nothing.
would we do that?
Well, let me explain. In New Mexico, there are 106 mayors, 106 communities. I'm the only registered professional engineer. Throughout the nation, there are many registered engineers who are mayors. And I asked them a point-blank question.
Asked who? Mayor?
The mayors.
Oh.
Who are professional engineers. As a peer reviewer on every project that is going on in your community, is it appropriate for the village to pay for your license? And they said, absolutely. That's what they told me. Now, I will ask Nan Winter a point-blank question. In New Mexico, the law requires that construction projects over a certain amount require the overall supervision. We go out and contract for that. But as the only PE in a community in New Mexico, I'm the peer reviewer. So I would ask you, is it appropriate? And you can answer that question whenever you have time to evaluate it. If that's a question you really want to answer.
It seems, it just doesn't seem quite right to me, Mayor, as an elected official. And I understand what you're saying, but it seems like it doesn't necessarily, I would never ask the village to pay my registration.
You don't have
my company does.
Sure.
But we could. And I'm not sure if that's.
Well, we have an attorney who will give us the answer to that question. I've been doing it for 30 years. No one has ever questioned it.
Oh,
not previous mayors, not previous
trustees.
trustees.
When you were a trustee?
Of course. This has gone on for a long time. Yes.
Mayor, trustee, I'll take a look at the question from both perspectives.
Please do, and let's get an answer to that.
Okay.
It's not much. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, I get that.
It's very little, really.
Thanks, Mayor.
Sure, you bet.
Bear with me. I was curious, and this is for you, and just your report. That survey that the village released, did we come up with those questions ourselves, or did we use a professional like one of the firms that does?
Mayor, Trustee Radnovich, we did not use a professional. No, we as a committee came up with the questions, and we formatted it. It was meant to be a touchstone, and really, honestly, it was initially meant to get feedback from the business community, because only 50% of the Business and Economic Development Committee are business owners in the village, and we really wanted to get more feedback from the business community.
And the amount of feedback was actually more from the residents, right?
Yes, and we also sent out a touchstone survey for how residents are using the businesses up on 4th Street, what they wanted to see, what was missing, that kind of thing.
Okay. I think that was all I had there. Oh, this was for Josh, actually. And he may have left. He did. And you may be able, yeah, you may be able to answer this one. I noticed there was no mention of, you and I have talked about doing some tree planting and maybe some other kinds of crops or other kinds of landscape planting at the Del Norte open space. I didn't notice anything in the report on that, so I just wondered if is that going to show up in the future a little more? And
Yes.
is there a committee for that?
Mayor and Trustee Radovich, if you want to join the Ag Committee next Wednesday at 3 p.m., we are bringing that to that committee.
Oh, great. I'll see what I can do.
And it's a new project that we've just identified.
Yeah, and I hope I know we just talked about it 2 days ago, so it just came to mind when I read your report. I didn't have anything for Maida, and I already asked Maria questions, and I didn't have anything for Fred either. It's a first, Fred. That's all I had. Thank you, Mayor.
We're going to move on to item 9, financial business, discussion and approval of the December 2022 cash report.
Danielle, Mayor, are we going to have public comment?
For what?
Reports?
No.
We've never had public comment for the reports. I would prefer not to do that. If anybody has a question or comment, you can send us an email, a text message, or a letter, and we will answer that appropriately. Okay?
Should we address it to the attorney as well?
You can, of course. Of course. CC the attorney, absolutely. Okay, so we move on to the discussion and approval of the cash report. CFO Tammy Silva.
Good evening, Mayor, Trustees. I'm going to present to you the cash report for December 31st, 2022. For December 31st, 2022, we have an ending cash balance of $11,417,386.17. This is an increase for the month of $288,288.17. And this brings us to a year-to-date excess of revenue over expenditures of $1,548,993.95. And there were no unusual or significant items to note during the month.
Okay. Before we get to discussion from the governing body or questions, I need a motion to approve the December 2022 cash report.
I make a motion to approve the December 21st, 2022 cash report.
I need a second.
I'll second that.
Now, are there any questions from the governing body for Tammy Silva? Start with Trustee Lewis.
I have no questions at this time.
Trustee Benavides.
I do have questions.
Go right ahead.
So let's see, on page 43, you talk about our ending cash balance of being $11,417,000, and the excess of revenues over expenditures is like, you know, 1.5 million. Sounds great. So so therefore, I'm assuming our expenditures are 9,868,000. Where do I find that figure in all the tables that you presented? In particular on page 48, I would think it would be there.
So Mayor, Trustee Benavides, if you go to, yes, on page 48, so the amount that you are seeing there is, actually, let me go to another page. So actually, if you go to page 44, this will actually present a better picture for you.
Okay, I'm there now.
Okay, so this will show you by fund, and what this is showing you here is that that's going to show you our ending cash balance by fund, and that the excess deficiency, which is the second column, that kind of shows what's going in and out of each of those funds, and then that's where you're getting the 1.5 million of year-to-date excess of revenues over expenditures. And I'm not sure, does that kind of help answer that question, or are you looking for something more specific?
I was looking for a column that added up to the expenditures of what did I say, 9.8 million or something like that.
So on page 48 with the blue ribbon, you're gonna see the third column from the end. I'm sorry, let's see. Is gonna show you our budgeted expenditures. So what that's showing you with the year-to-date excess of revenues over expenditures is we've received 1 million more in revenue than we've actually expended. So you're not going to see the 9 million number that you're looking for. You're only going to see in that 1.5 million, that just means that from July 1st through the end of December, we have received 1.5 million more in revenue than we have expended.
Okay, and I do see the 1.5 million excess on page 48, but it just surprises me. I don't see a summation for the expenditures.
So if you look above that 1.5 million that you're seeing on page 48, let's see, there's about 6 rows up. There is a total expenditure year-to-date of 1.7 million. It's $1,756,877.16.
Yes.
That's our total expenditures for the year to through December 31st.
Okay, so then that is not the 9.8 million in expenditures, so.
Correct. So where you're getting, so if you look down that column completely from the top to bottom, that's kind of where you'll see that picture. We started the year with $9.8 million. And then through the year, we've received $3.5 million in revenue. And then we've expended $1.7 million in expenditures. And then we have had an operating transfer out of the 276,000, which is what brings us to the 1.5 year-to-date excess of revenue over expenditures. Does that help clarify that?
Yeah, I'll study that some more. Thanks.
Okay.
I was just surprised I never see the summation of the expenditures that gets me to the 9.8. But I'll study it more, and maybe I'll ask you a more pointed question later by email if that's okay.
Okay.
So more questions. Let's see. You know, I mean, it's always interesting. On page 44, we always see a little discretionary money, but then it always disappears. But so that's why I'm asking these other questions, so I can, and that may become obvious once I understand all these different tables that you generate. So let me ask you a different question on page 46. Under revenues, this is under the general fund, current period to date budget, and I see a figure of 392,000 there. And then the next column over, I see 360.7 thousand, right? Do you follow me?
I'm sorry, what page are you on, Trustee?
Oh, page 46, under general fund.
Okay, yes, I'm sorry, continue.
Okay, so I'm thinking the 392,000 was projected, and we fell a little short, 360,000, is that correct?
That is correct.
So how did you derive that value of 392,000?
So we, Mayor Trustee Benavides, what we do is we go through a whole budgeting process at the beginning of the year. I actually will start the process for the new budget now in this next month. And what we do is we look at all of our different revenue sources, and depending on the revenue source, we forecast it a certain way. So for things like our GRT, and our taxes that we collect from the state, we look at a 3-year look back, and we look at what we've been receiving over the last 3 years, and we look at the trend to see if it's trending upwards, staying the same, or if it's decreasing. And based on that, we will project for the next year. And then for things like our fees, fees and building permits, we just look at what we did the year prior to that to see what's been going on. We've had a couple anomalies because of COVID and the pandemic the past couple of years. So we've had to kind of adjust for that, knowing that we had the pandemic and we were coming out of the pandemic. We had to kind of put that information into our forecasting. And then also one of the other things, one of the larger items in our revenues that we have to budget for, that is always kind of a guess, is our Small Cities Assistance Grant. That comes in from the state, and it is a whole calculation that they do every year. So we budget that pretty conservatively because we don't have their calculation and how they determine that, and it kind of bounces up and down every year. So we go through a whole process depending on what type of revenue, and come up with the new number for the new year.
Yeah, I mean, during the COVID years, we actually did very well, right, in terms of revenues. And I was looking at the 21-22 fiscal year, and that projection, instead of being 392,000, was more like 270,000. So there was a significant jump in the projection. Now, last month we actually exceeded that. This month we're a little low. So it's just a couple of data points. You can draw a straight line through that, but if you want to, but I wouldn't recommend it. So I'll be watching that. I'm worried that we might be projecting too high, but I'll just watch it. That's all.
And Mayor and Trustee Benavides, one of the other things that I would like to point out, so there's a couple things. When we do month to month, that can kind of vary based on the timing of when we receive the revenue, and that when we get it into the bank. So if a check comes in on the 30th and it doesn't process the bank till the following month, that's going to affect that first column for the current. However, if you look over all the way to the end and you look at that same line, you can see that our total budget is at 49.82%. So that's pretty much, we're at 50% of the year, and we're pretty much at 50% of the revenue expected.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Trustee Radnovich.
I have nothing, Mayor.
Okay, I'm gonna call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously. Item B, discussion and approval of resolution number 2023-01-03, a resolution recommending budget adjustment revisions, BAR. CFO Tammy Silva.
Thank you, Mayor, Trustees. Before you is the resolution 2023-01-03. This resolution and budget adjustment that we are presenting, as can be seen on page 55, is to move money from the Planning and Zoning Department, the 1700 department, into the Agri-Nature Department, which is 1970. And what we are doing here is we are moving the animal control position and the animal control expenditures from the old department, which again was Planning and Zoning, into Agri-Nature. The reason we're doing this is because this position was reclassified, and the old position used to be animal control / code enforcement, which is why it fell under Planning and Zoning. However, the new position is no longer code enforcement. It is just animal control, and it is also the animal husbandry. And so they will be working with the ag program. So we are just taking the money that was already budgeted for this position, moving it out of the Planning and Zoning Department and moving that into the Agri-Nature Department so that it makes sense, and that next year when we budget and we have a comparison, we can see 1 year to the next and it all makes sense. And I stand for any questions.
Okay, before we move on to questions from the governing body, I need a motion to approve resolution number 2023-01-03.
I'll make a motion.
Motion to approve resolution 2023-01-03.
I need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, now, do we have any questions from the governing body? I'll start with Trustee Lewis.
No, I have no question.
Trustee Benavides.
No questions?
Trustee Radnovich.
No questions.
Okay, call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes?
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Item 10 is unfinished business. Item A has been moved to the February 8th, 2023 meeting. No further discussion on that. Item 11 is new business, discussion and approval of resolution number 2023-01-01, a resolution concerning Board of Trustees meetings and public notice requirements. Clerk Danielle Cedillo Molina.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and trustees, before you is resolution number 2023-0101. This resolution establishes the Board of Trustee meetings and public notice requirements as required by law. Each public body should adopt an annual resolution at a regularly scheduled meeting stating its procedures for the meetings and public notice requirements. This resolution adequately, accurately, and sufficiently informs the public of meeting time, place, and day. With that, I ask your approval.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Before we get to discussion from the governing body, I need a motion to approve resolution number 2023-01-01.
Motion to approve resolution 2023-01-01.
I need a second.
I second.
Okay, now we get to discussion from the governing body. Are there any questions from the trustees? I'll start with Trustee Lewis.
I have no questions at this
Trustee
time.
Benavides.
Just a simple question. Have there been any changes since last year?
Trustee Benavides, we just clarified under item 1 and added video conferencing platform.
Okay.
Trustee Radnovich.
I have a few questions.
Go ahead.
Danielle, if we approve this resolution, can the date and time be changed throughout the year? Would we have to go back and amend the resolution?
Well, if the board makes a change to it permanently, yes, we'll need to rescind this and then establish a new resolution indicating that.
Okay.
However, we do have the option to change the meeting and the time as long as it's publicly noticed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions from the governing body?
I do.
Go ahead.
Can the meeting be held elsewhere if possible? We had some meetings this year that were so crowded that, you know, people were standing out to outside the doors, actually. They couldn't hear anything that was going on.
Yes, Mayor and Trustee Ranovich, yes. Again, as long as it's properly noticed where the location, time, and date. As you know, this last year too, we had meetings at different times that were outside of what we establish here. Mm-hmm. This is just kind of notifying our regularly scheduled meetings the second Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. here. But if there are changes, we do need to notice that.
Okay. Just a couple more.
This is Kiko, Mr. Mayor, Trustee Radnovich. Can I also address one thing on that question?
Go right ahead.
So just real quick, the meeting from a paperwork standpoint can be held anywhere, like Danielle had talked about. From a technology and logistics standpoint for recording and meeting the requirements is a completely different issue for moving it to a different location. There would most likely be costs and significant costs to move the meeting out of Village Hall from a technology standpoint, as well as just a labor standpoint to get stuff like that set up, which is why we implemented the hybrid solution in the way where people can participate through Zoom, even if they're not able to make it into Village Hall in person.
Thanks, Kiko. That's a great explanation as well. So it does cost money. The last couple of comments I have were just kind of maybe updating the rule, because I remember it from last year, and it's, obviously, we need to do that. One is, on page 60, it says, under item 5, it says, conference telephone. It says, a member of the Board of Trustees may participate in a meeting by means of conference telephone. Can we add video conference to that, just to update this so that it covers what we're doing tonight?
I believe it includes, and let me take a look, I said, or added, participating by conference telephone or other communications equipment.
Yes.
Yes, great. And then the other thing is a similar question. Under 6, after the website for Los Ranchos, it says, Office of the Clerk, Agri-Nature Center, 4920 Rio Grande Boulevard Northwest, and the Old Village Hall at Green Valley, etc. The village clerk shall mail facsimile. No one uses those anymore. Can we take that out?
No, well,
Or not many people do.
that's true, but unfortunately, I do need to leave that in the event that there is someone who is requesting the notice, because this indicates that if they do request that, that is a means of communication, and we need to make that available.
Yep, okay. I think that was my last question. Let me just real quickly scan the rest. Yep, that was my last question. Thank you.
I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes?
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously. Item B, discussion and approval of resolution number 2023-01-02, a resolution amending the 2024-2028 Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan, ICIP. Administrator Simon.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. Yes, before you is an amendment to the ICIP list that you adopted in September. Hopefully you're all familiar with those. There were about 11 projects. They're on our website, and those are the projects that we're going after funding in Santa Fe. This particular item was not included as it was brought to our attention right after you approved that initial list. This is to add a refurbishment of the village trolley as a coffee truck and workforce development tool for young adults and children with disabilities, especially hearing disabilities. The Village of Los Ranchos is developing an MOU with the Albuquerque Sign Language Academy. I know that our manager, Joshua O'Halloran, has talked to you about this as a potential project and partnership with ASLA. And we're really excited, and we hope that you support this request to add a $250,000 refurbishment of the trolley for this purpose.
Thank you, Ann. I need a motion to approve resolution number 2023-01-02 before we get to discussion from the governing body. If I don't get a motion, don't get a second, then it dies for lack of a motion, lack of a second.
Mayor, I don't feel comfortable providing a motion until I get some questions answered.
Well, of course, then let's go ahead and get to the questions right away. Go right ahead. Go ahead.
Mayor, we do need a motion in order to get to discussion.
Actually, I think you're right. We've had this happen once before, and if you don't get a second, first of all, if you don't get a motion, then it disappears. But if you don't get a second, it dies for lack of a second. So if we don't get a motion, it disappears. If you don't get a second, it dies for lack of a motion under Robert's Rules of Order. Okay,
For
not
sake
getting,
of discussion, I will make a motion to approve 2023-01-02.
thank you.
I'm with Trustee Radnovich. I have a lot of questions.
That's fine. I need a second.
I'll second it for the sake of conversation.
Okay, let's start with Trustee Lewis. Discussion from the governing body, questions. Go ahead, Trustee Lewis.
I would just like to know more about how this is going to fit on our ICIP, where it's going to fit, and are we expecting the full amount to be funded, or is this going to be something that we're going to spend village residents' money on? So I think it's a wonderful cause, but I'm not sure that it benefits the whole village. So if you could answer some of those questions, I would appreciate it.
So Ann Simon, do you want to tackle that right off
Sure.
the bat?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, Trustee Lewis. So this project was brought to our attention by the Albuquerque Sign Language Academy in partnership with YDI. YDI has been bringing these children to the Agri-Nature Center for outdoor education. They seem to really benefit from being on the property. They are one group of many that come to the Agri-Nature Center for outdoor education and being on the land and farming. They had an idea to provide workforce training to this group. And they are already trying to provide a pathway to employment for the older students, the students in their teens and early 20s. But there is limited places for these kinds of experiences and sort of this kind of training to occur. They really liked the idea of taking the trolley, refurbishing it into a food truck so that they could learn how to have customer service skills, how to do accounting and all of that. And we thought it was a great idea to provide a venue for residents to come and have a beverage. So it was just sort of as simple as that. We liked the idea of utilizing the trolley, which is currently sitting in our warehouse taking up space, but bringing it out into the field, using it for this sort of fun purpose, allowing people, residents, to come utilize the food truck for walk-up service as they're walking the trails, to bike into the Agri-Nature Center, and it would just be a draw for more people to come and access the services. As to the funds, the stipulation with the organization was that they would raise all the funds on their own. We cannot even ask the legislature for any funds unless it's on our ICIP. So the presumption is, and we will specify this in an MOU, that no village funds will go towards this endeavor. It will be solely supported by the Albuquerque Sign Language Academy.
Any more questions, Trustee Lewis?
I think it's a wonderful cause, so I want to understand. It goes on our ICIP, but we don't ask the legislature for any funding, and it's totally up to the other organization to provide all the funding. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's our property, so whatever happens to it will be our responsibility, but we have tasked them with raising the needed funding.
And will it be part of our budget to provide ongoing operating funds of any type?
I don't anticipate that, no.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Benavides.
How do we know it costs $250K to refurbish this trolley?
Trustee Benavides, Mayor, trustees, that was an estimate that they provided to us.
And they are?
The Albuquerque Sign Language Academy and YDI, and their consultants.
What's the condition of the trolley? Is it running now?
It doesn't run.
No.
So it would be mostly to get it to run and maybe make it look nicer? Is that the idea?
As a matter of fact, Mayor, Trustee Benavides, we wouldn't be running the trolley at all. It would just be parked outside of the Agri-Nature Center.
So why do we need to get it to run?
We don't need it to run. We are refurbishing it into a coffee shop, basically.
Okay.
A stationary coffee shop.
I see. So we went through, the mayor was reminding me that it was in the summertime that we went through our capital improvement list. And as you mentioned, this was not on the list. And, you know, we prioritized that list. So shouldn't we go through that process again and prioritize and see where this ends up?
Mayor, Trustee Benavides, you raised a great question. It isn't one of the village's top priorities, but it can be on our list as a future project. The legislature won't fund anything that's not on community's ICIP. That's kind of the purpose of adding it tonight.
So would it jeopardize any ICIP funding we may get for those projects that we did prioritize?
Hopefully not.
We don't believe so. Personally, we don't believe so.
Okay, that's all my questions.
Trustee Radnovich.
I think the ASL Academy is an awesome, awesome project. We work with them, actually. So they're really my company. So they're really a great organization. And I can see Rafe coming up with these ideas for it. So the trolley will no longer, if we were to fund this, or if we were to approve this, the trolley would no longer be able to be used as a trolley.
Mayor, Trustee Radnovich, that's correct. We have been trying to find a way to dispose of the trolley.
That is absolutely correct.
We've been trying to find a way to dispose of the trolley.
Yes.
And that's because it doesn't run anymore?
The trolley doesn't run. It's taking up room in the warehouse. It requires a CDL to run, and it's an expense that we don't have the funds for.
And it actually doesn't work also?
It does not run currently.
I see. If we were to approve this, could, never mind, I'm not going to ask that question. So it's a partnership with the ASL Academy. It would cost $250,000 in their opinions, but we would put it on the ICIP and they would pay for it if it got approved.
Mayor, Trustee Radnovich, that is correct. They are going after state funds.
I see. Okay, thank you very much. Let me, just 1 second. Yeah, that's the only question.
Okay, I'm going to call for the question. I'm going to call for the roll call vote. Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
We already had discussion. We just finished it.
We're not having public discussion.
There's no reason for public discussion on this. This is a governing body decision, okay?
You're not having discussion, is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
On anything?
That's not right. If it's a hearing, let's answer the question, Attorney Winter. At what point is public discussion allowable? It is a hearing, is that correct or not?
Mayor, this is a resolution.
Right.
Not a public hearing that requires testimony in one direction or the other, and there was already public comment allowed at the beginning of the meeting on anything that anybody wanted to talk about.
That's correct.
So we can't talk on anything on the agenda. You're changing our whole agenda.
No, I don't think so, but let me ask you a question, Attorney Winter. This might be a good time to resolve this because, you know, we've got 1 year left in my term as mayor, and there may be a future mayor, and maybe this should be resolved right now. I have no problem allowing people in the audience to comment on this. I really don't.
Mayor, that's perfectly acceptable,
Okay,
and that's your prerogative.
okay, then who wants to speak on this issue? Please come forward. Person by person. Go right ahead, Loretta. Yeah.
I was just going to say real quick, it just says that participants wishing to speak on topics that do not appear on the agenda will be given 3 minutes. That's our general.
Microphone, please.
I understand, and that's why I want to get this resolved right now. I want to make sure. Okay, Yeah, so 3 minutes, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Trustees.
bet.
Joe Craig, 505 Calle del Pajarito, Northwest. This frightens me. I think you're getting into anti-donation clause violations. We're already got a problem on that. The city of Albuquerque has a problem with anti-donation. I don't know how you're doing this, and this was not what I read in the minutes or the agenda. Not that this was, you're going to the Sign Language Academy that's not in the village. It's not part of our jurisdiction, and transferring some money. I think you're getting in trouble. We could buy a food truck for $40,000. $250,000 to renovate this is unbelievable. I think there's some better ideas for this trolley, actually. It's a historic trolley. Certainly, I agree with George, that's a great academy, but they are not in the village. There's a big problem. There's $31 million going up on Edith. This is not our school. If we're gonna do something, we need to be doing it with Los Ranchos or Taft or Alvarado or one of our schools. We're getting way out of our jurisdiction. Thank you.
Next public comment. Go right ahead.
Loretta Chavez Smith, 536 Chavez Road, Northwest. I have a real problems with this also. Number one, they're not in our village. This has nothing to do with our monies, our property. Number two, if this was to go through, who's going to pay for the insurance on this thing? To operate it, that's going to be on the village property. Is the village going to be responsible for that insurance? That's a big insurance liability with a food truck. Number three, the sign language group is awesome. They really are. But now they've got all of this property that I used to own, the 22 acres over there. They're going to be building a brand new building. Let them use that property over there and build a food truck or build a small cafe. Hello, why are they using our stuff? Number four, YDI. Great thing. We have businesses here that could train YDI kids. Why does we have to renovate a trolley to make this happen? I mean, there's a lot of kids out there that would love to have a job training program if some of the businesses would open it up. What's wrong with the businesses here in the village? Haven't we asked any of them would they like to train a YDI child? And then this is not good for our village. It really isn't. Great idea. Put it on their property of the 22 acres and let them build something there. We have to look at our village and build something for us, not for somebody else. And I'm part of the business economic. Why are we doing this for somebody else? Let's do it for our own people and business people, or new businesses that want to come into our village. So this is not a good idea for our village. Please don't let this happen.
Who wants to come next? Gordine, please come forward.
Gordine McKenzie, 7315 Guadalupe Trail, Northwest. I just wanted to say there are a group of us that are in the process of starting to form a historical association for Los Ranchos. And as Joe said, that trolley is historical. And we're hoping that someday we may have a cultural center where we can put things and we can honor the history and the uniqueness of Los Ranchos. And I would just like to see those things preserved. Again, I am in total support of ASL, but I agree with what Loretta said. Let them have something, you know, on their land, and let's do things for the residents of Los Ranchos. Thank you.
Go ahead, come on up, Nancy.
Yeah, I worry when we get an answer, I hope so, on whether or not this will affect our other ICIP requests. I don't think that's an adequate answer. And I don't think we should be putting other projects at risk for this. And $250,000 is a crazy amount of money for a project like this. You can build a cafe. There's all kinds of different ways. So anyway, Nancy Nangeroni, 7315 Guadalupe Trail. My apologies for not getting that up front. I was just trying to be quick.
Next comment, please come forward.
Jennifer Kiefer, 722 Mullen Road. Wow, I like that trolley. I saw it for the very first time when we had our great presentation at the big barn on the Village Pelodrome project. That open meeting that we all got comment on. But needless here or there, I think we should save the trolley. I think there's really cool things that we can do. Loretta just informed me, I didn't know that Starbucks does coffee projects for organizations like YDI. So maybe we help facilitate something like that for these children, because it is a very crucial thing. And yes, $250,000 is a lot of money. And I'm sorry, and it's about as clear as mud of why it needs to be on our list for $250,000 when we're not paying for it. It should be on them and off of our list and not affect any of our projects. Thank you.
Okay, I think that takes care of it. There's only one other person in the room who could speak. Bob, do you want to come on up and give us your opinion? Come on, Bob, please.
Bob Kears, 7037 Guadalupe Trail. Mostly ditto. This project is not for the village, it's for somebody else. Thank you.
I'm going to call for the question. Call for the roll call vote. Trustee Lewis.
No.
Trustee Benavides.
No.
Trustee Radnovich.
No.
Okay, the motion does not carry. All right, we're going to move to C, discussion and approval of resolution number 2023-01-04, a resolution accepting the approval of a celebration permit. Administrator Simon.
All right, I hope this one is a little bit more amenable. We are requesting a celebration permit. This allows vending of alcohol at the Agri-Nature Center for the Matanza on February 25th. The vendors are Hops and Kelly Joe. And I stand for questions.
Okay, before we get to questions, I need a motion to approve resolution number 2023-01-04.
Motion to approve resolution 2023-01-04.
I need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, are there any questions from the governing body? I'll start with Trustee Lewis.
No, I have no questions at this time.
Trustee Benavides.
I have none.
Trustee Radnovich.
None.
I'm going to call for the question. Call for the roll call vote. Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Thank you. Now we'll go to trustee informal discussion. I do have a statement at the end of the trustee informal discussion, but I'll start with Trustee Lewis.
I have nothing at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Trustee Benavides.
Yeah, a couple things. So I've been at this for just a month over 1 year. So just wanted to comment on what I've learned. And I think it might be good for the few residents sitting out there to understand something about what I learned about our government structure. So the trustees our vote is every bit as important as the mayor's, right?
I don't have a vote. I only vote. when
You
there's a
only
tie.
vote when there's a tie, but that's
Correct.
still, that could still be important. It could still be the deciding vote. So what we don't do is we don't get very involved in the day-to-day activities, okay? And so a lot of times when we get our packets, we're surprised by some of the things. And I have to tell you that when I have questions, if I call Ann, or I call Maria, or I called Maida, or Danielle, they respond. They are very good. But you know, it's not uncommon for someone to call me or send me an email and say, what is this all about in the agenda? And I hadn't even opened up my email yet on Friday, right? So I just want you to know that sometimes it seems like I don't know what's going on because I may not know at the moment, okay? But I will get on it. Thank you. So you know, communication. I think we haven't done a good job of communication, and I see us taking steps to improve that. You know, I think the mayor's report is a good place. The village vision is a good place. I think we could still go further with graphics and make sure those things that people might be interested in are up front and in their face. And we have a Citizens Advisory Committee now, by the way, which has been very good at being proactive and looking at what we're doing and asking questions. So I think that's a good thing. About a year ago, I think we talked about our pay, right? So the trustees get $50 for every meeting, or maybe once a month, I can't remember what it is. And Pablo Real, the former trustee, made a comment. He says, we either ought to make it a real number or just get rid of it because it's more trouble than what it's worth when it comes time to do our taxes. I could go either way on it, but I would say this about pay, and I think we ought to revisit it again. It's not just about us, it's about those other people that may want to come up here and do what we're doing, and it may be important. And I use teachers as an example, as an example of a profession of someone that's overworked and just gets a very modest pay for their work. And so a reasonable pay might be extremely important to them. So, you know, maybe we should revisit that. And I know we talked about it probably a year ago. The amounts maybe were too high based upon some of the comments that I heard. But maybe we ought to consider that and come up with some a different number.
Well, let me offer this comment. This is not my statement. I'll get to that at the end. But in 2003, when the ordinance was passed, the salary of the mayor was above the minimum wage at that time. Today, it's 1/3 of the minimum wage. And if nothing happens in this year, it will actually be 2032 before there would ever be an increase in the pay of the mayor. And the minimum wage in 2032 is probably going to be $25 an hour. So there's no enticement for a younger person, in my opinion, to want to do this job if you're getting 1/3 of the minimum pay or 1/5 of the minimum pay. And the trustees are in the same boat. When I was a trustee, I would spend minimum of 10 hours a month. Well, 10 hours a month at the minimum wage is a number. That is not an unreasonable number. And so that was the logic behind that. So here we are 20 years later, and the minimum wage has gone up. 10 years from now, it's going to go up even more. So that's the bottom line.
I may be slow at reviewing my packages, but it takes anywhere from 6 to 12 hours.
Of course.
And it's usually closer to 10.
That's been my experience.
And then on the off weeks, you know, there's occasional emails and people that I talk to. Right. So I mean, it's not a lot, but it is something. And so, by the way, people are welcome to email me. If you address it to me, I will do my best to respond to you. If it's just copied to me but addressed to somebody else, I probably won't respond because I'm thinking the person wants somebody else to respond. So just, take note of that. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Trustee Radnovich.
Good job. I'm going to propose a couple, well, I'm proposing one thing that I think is a fun thing. The village has a lot of artists in it.
That's true.
I don't think we've ever funded, I could be wrong, but I don't think we've ever funded art, public art, even though we have some monies for it. I think there was $2,500 in either Ann's or Maria's report. I've been driving by the new building that the Fresquez's just built. And, that side of that building as you're southbound on 4th Street would be an awesome place for a mural. And we probably want to hide a little bit of the mechanical equipment on that building, or camouflage it. But I think that would be a really awesome place for the village to actually start to fund some public art with the amount of artists that are in this village. So I think that's a great place to do it. On the sort of negative side, I think there are ways, and Ann and I have talked about this, that we can change the way that the El Camino Motel does business. I don't think they're following code in the traffic that they're sort of trying to direct within their space. I remember when we were on the 4th Street project, we had one opening for the Camino. The owner wanted two, and now he tries to close one down. So I think we really need to do something to make the El Camino more of an asset for what we just built on 4th Street, as opposed to a detriment, because I think it actually inhibits the kinds of businesses that we want down there on 4th Street, on the existing part of 4th Street, as opposed to attracting them. So just a thought there. Well, more than a thought, I guess, and I'm more than willing to help. The village on-call. We've had an on-call engineer, architect, I think, maybe not, and landscape architect for 3 years now. Most municipalities don't hold on to these on-calls forever. We've given a lot of money to Bohannon Houston as one. It seems to me that 3 years is enough time to have another on-call released.
And I agree with you on that.
And it's just been a long time.
I agree with you on that.
And then the last thing is, thank you, Mayor. The last thing is, I think, as you know, I attend a lot of public meetings and meetings with other municipalities, and not all of them conduct their monthly meetings like we do. And a lot of them definitely, because of the way they're organized, allow more discussion among the elected officials and even the public. And so I think we need to take a look at that, because Robert's rules may not be the only thing we need to follow. And that may be untrue, but I know that other municipalities do things differently than we do, and they do things that are more open. And so I'd love to also help in any way I can with that idea, because I think our meetings are are almost the opposite sometimes. So, and Danielle, you may have something to say about that.
Yes, I just want to say, under our rules of procedure, it is Robert's Rules of Procedure. However, we're looking at incorporating some new rules that will be getting out to all of the trustees for review before we bring it before the board, which will allow discussion on certain items, and that's why there's some municipalities that do have rules of procedure that are, allow for comment. Some comments, some public comment isn't allowed for every single topic.
Sure.
And we also have to define that because otherwise it would be difficult for you to conduct business. So those are going to be incorporated hopefully soon. And I'll get them out to you as soon as they're in a draft form.
When do you think that might be, Danielle?
Mayor and I discussed that we're going to probably meet in the next 2 weeks so we can kind of shore those up and then get those out to you for review, comments, changes, et cetera, and then bring them before the board this first quarter.
That's great. I really, I think that's a really good step. That's it.
Okay. I'm going to ask.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
I just would like to make.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead, Alan.
First of all, in addressing Trustee Benavides's comments, I'd like the people in the audience to know that as we talk about this compensation issue, whatever is decided will become effective for January 2023. So it's for any newly elected officials.
That's
It
correct.
has nothing to do with people currently sitting.
Right.
And secondly, I would like to make a recommendation that maybe this issue, it's a hard issue for us to decide about compensation. And I think maybe this would be a good issue to go before the Citizens Advisory Committee and help let them give us some guidance in that issue.
Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all. Anything else, Trustee Lewis?
No, that's all I have. Thank you.
Mayor, he made me think of another item. Why would we have to wait 10 years? What is the?
It's not 10 years, it's actually 4. Because if the next governing body, let's say a year from now, a new mayor and a new trustees, they can't give themselves a raise. It's 4 more years.
So it's not 2032.
It's 2028.
Okay.
My mistake.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's 25 years after it was done the first time, which is a long, long time. Okay. Before I close the meeting, here's what I want to say, and I want Attorney Winter to add a little bit to this if she desires. Affordable housing and perceived requirements of such continues to be raised as an issue in reference to the Village Center project. I would like to clarify that the Affordable Housing Act does not apply to the Village Center project. The affordability aspect of the multifamily housing in Village Center is based on the requirements of financing that the developer received through the New Mexico Mortgage Finance Authority and did not require an affordable housing plan and ordinance to be developed and adopted by the village. Not all affordable housing is funded via the Affordable Housing Act. Developers have dozens of options in pursuit of affordable housing. Attorney Winter, any further discussion on this?
Mayor, I think you nailed it on the head. What we have happening at Village Center is lowercase affordable housing.
Right.
The Affordable Housing Act, capital, uppercase, is not implicated in this project whatsoever. It is also not the subject of any pending litigation. There has been zero challenge to the village legally that it somehow should have or would have or could have complied with the Affordable Housing Act. So it's simply a legal red herring.
With that, the meeting is adjourned. The time is 9:33 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah,